Hey guys, SickMotion here with a run through of my opinions on the patch 9.2 notes, which is also the start of the Season 9 ranked play. Um, the new ranked system I think is in North America for sure, and I think the other region was Korea, and I don't think it's in any other regions until the end of the first 1/3 split. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of. I'm not going to go over any of the ranking systems. It's a little bit more in depth than I would want to do. I'm just here to go over the champion changes. I'm not going to talk about the new champion either. I haven't actually. I saw the champion reveal, and that's the most I've seen from him. I know what he does for the most part, but I don't know enough to really talk about it or have an opinion on it. I haven't seen anything yet. He's not out yet either. I think he comes out sometime later, which I think is a good idea. I don't think releasing a new champion on the day that they do the patch that resets rank for this season is the best idea. People try harding and wanting to win more than normal since the games are worth more in your placements, and then people trying out new champions that don't really care about that. It's a bad combination. So it's a good idea to wait and bring it out later. Aatrox has had the scaling on his Q pulled back a little bit. Um, let's see here. Yeah, the scaling's pulled back a little bit. Um, apparently, the full combo damage, let's see, is 4.5 total attack damage is down to 4.22. So if you're hitting it all, it will be a little bit less and it'll scale a little bit less. Um, I enjoy playing Aatrox. I played a handful of Aatrox games, maybe 20 or 30. I'm not the greatest Aatrox player, but a lot of the times, like I know that I'm going to do damage when I'm going in, but I don't have that like eyeballing to know exactly how much damage I'm going to do when I go in on stuff. I haven't played enough of the champion for that, so he'll do less damage, but I won't really notice it to be honest. This is a pretty big change though. The Umbral Dash recharge time 2 seconds earlier or 2 seconds longer at all levels, but at level 10, that's actually quite a bit longer because or sorry, not level 10, at level 5 it's 10 seconds rather than 8, which is, even if you have 40% CDR, it's going to be an extra second and a fifth for that dash, which might make or break late game fights. So that's kind of more what I'm looking at it for. Not the sorry, one sec, my dog's chewing on my chair. There we go. But it definitely will be felt at all places. Erlan Soul, I think this is a cool change. The minimum recast change is lower so that you can pop it off right away. And the stun duration on his Q now is a lot lower if you just hit like right beside you, but the stun duration scales depending on how far the star has traveled. If it's traveled for 5 seconds, so if you're building up that massive one from like downtown, it still scales with level for that as well, but you can get a 2.25 second stun on like a massive area if you do it from very far away. Um, Previous stun duration reached after 0.75 seconds. So I think that's kind of cool that it scales based on how far it's traveled. Brand has had his passive down to 3% of targets max health over 4 seconds rather than 4%, so just straight nerfs there. Brand just does a ridiculous amount of damage. But that damage is just flat without scaling, so it made it easier to build support and be a little bit behind but still do a lot of damage, so that's good. Cassio has had the cooldown on her W up by 2 seconds. The W is really strong, and it's a really strong CC mechanic that you can't dash or flash off of it, so even though you can move, you're still kind of grounded on it. I mean, that's what it is. But they also toned down the damage per second and the max damage on it from that. I don't think the damage on it is really what was causing the issues with it. I think that it was just a strong skill for the CC and everything it provided. Maybe reducing the slow on it, or changing like the targeting on it, or the cooldown on it, hitting it harder. I don't know. I don't think the damage really matters, but I guess they're just trying to hit it across the board. Galio, thank God. I leaned against the Galio that I was playing Kennen, and I would hit like a full combo of all my spells and get it thread in a ton of auto attacks. Galio misses his Q, but just hits me with the traveling side ones, and it did more damage. And he had half an item, and I had an item and a half. Like, the Q just did way too much damage, so they're making it so that it goes up. The mana cost is very high, so it's 120 mana at rank 5 rather than 90, so that's quite a huge increase, especially if you're not building a mana item first item. The damage on it is down on the Wind Blast. The AP ratio is also down, and the Tornado, 4% of the target's max health per 100 ability power is down to 2 per 100. It's just nice. He's just way too much damage. Just way too much. And then the Justice Punch damage is down as well. But it was mainly the Q, so they hit that in the right place. Aurelia no longer deals bonus damage to shields with her passive, but it still does the same things that it did before, minus that. The Blade Surge bonus damage to minions is no longer double damage. It's a flat bonus based on the numbers there. So it might change a little bit. Might have to get used to it if you're used to playing Aurelia and knowing what damage you can do to blast hit the minions. But once you get your Sheen, your Trinity Force and stuff, and if you're dashing to a minion with that, then it usually kills the minion. And this is another big change as well. The duration on her ult is down 1 second at max rank. Still the same at the early rank. But it's down 1 second at max rank, so that gives you less time to have the people run into it. And it no longer disarms the enemies. This was really strong for certain enemies, like if you went on an 80 carrier or an auto attack based fighter. Not the biggest problem if it was on like a mage that doesn't care about auto attacking anyway. So it's the change here that the wall slows for 90% rather than 60, so it's really easy to hit your E afterwards unless they flash, because they're going to basically be standing still, and the damage is up quite a bit. It's up 100 at level 3, which isn't that much later on in the game, but it's up 50 at level 1, which might make the difference in some early game all-ins. The disarm, when using it to get kills in lane, wasn't really what was getting you the kill. It was more just being able to reset your Q more. So getting the more damage and the slow there will make her actually probably stronger at the early game and the 1v1s in lane. But later on in the team fights, it will be a less impactful CC with the disarm gone. But it will have a higher slow. So kind of just shifting around the power of it. Jarvan's bonus attack speed from his standard is now 5% higher at all levels. So at level 1, that's actually quite a bit. It'll help us jungle clear. Jax... weird changes here for nerfing Jax. I don't think it's necessarily the right way. His base attack damage is down by 2. That's going to hurt. I'll give it that. That's going to hurt because he has scaling on some other, on his abilities as well with his attack damage. And obviously an auto attack based champion is going to be autoing a ton, so it's 2 damage less on every auto. But they nerfed his leap strike damage to be 15 less at any level. It just seems like a weird change. Yeah, it just seems like a weird change. I don't think nerfing his early game was necessarily what they needed to do. I think they needed to tone down his late game. But that's just me. Kassadin had... this is actually quite a huge nerf. His base armor is down over 4, so it's 19 instead of 23. You got to keep in mind that the armor gives you more damage reduction at earlier levels. So like 10 armor at 20, when you go from 20 to 30 armor, that 10 armor is worth a lot more than going from 120 to 130 armor. So this it's the same reason lethality is so strong when you stack it, because you get their armor really low, which amplifies your damage a ton. That's gonna really hurt him for some of his harder matchups. Like Zed's gonna like destroy him hard now, and it's also just gonna make champions auto attacks do more damage to him because they're all physical. And his armor growth is also down, so this might be, you might be wanting to take double armor on Kassadin in your runes, depending on your lane matchup. There's a lot of changes to Kayn here. Mostly it's kind of being able to communicate to your team your intent for like what passive you're going for, how far away you are from it, and stuff like that. And you can also continue collecting orbs for your other form that you haven't unlocked once you unlock the first one if you're trying to wait for it. I don't really play the champion that much, so I'm not going to like go over it too much. I don't really have an opinion on it. I think anything that communicates with your team your intent and what you're trying to do more is always helpful when you're trying to be set up in a competitive environment, because I think the communication and the teamwork in this game needs to go a long way for the game to feel as good as it can. The Shadow Assassin exit dash is now 300 to 500 range, which is so you can dash out further to maybe move to another target or get more to safety because you're squishier. So I think that's cool. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see here. Nico, the clone and haste duration is 3 seconds when using the W. The stealth is still the same. Nico's clone now travels in a target direction until it runs into terrain rather than pathing to the target location. I actually haven't played Nico other than in a practice tool, so none of this means too much to me. The enemies in her ult are no longer slowed, so it's easier to get out of the ult, but her jump time is reduced, so her ult goes off faster. But overall, I think that's a nerf. It's easier to react to because you're not slowed. Ornn, just flat health increase and flat armor increase. His laning is kind of weak, honestly. The fact that they took away his shield from his W, his laning doesn't feel nearly as strong. I've been playing a lot of Olaf for a while now, but I had a lot more trouble beating Ornn with Olaf in the lanes where his cooldown on his W was longer, but it also gave him a shield compared to now, where it doesn't give him that shield. It's easier to just go in on him. Rakan's base armor is down by 4. Once again, hitting that armor early makes it you feel a lot more squishy in lane, even to like early game auto attacks. And they changed around the W scaling for the movement speed and everything. Basically, max range cast hit slightly later than before. Short range cast hit faster. I think that was more of a competitive balance change. I don't think I've played that champion either, or maybe I have. I think I played him maybe once or twice when he came out, but once again, I don't really pretend to have an opinion on characters. I don't play that often or really notice the change off the top of my head. This one's kind of cool. Bonus damage versus dragons on Shyvana is from 10% to 20%. If you play 3s, it also applies to Vilma. That 20% bonus damage to dragons will make her take the dragon quite a bit faster, noticeably faster, not like anything crazy, but that'll make it easier and give her more of an identity for getting those dragons, as well as her flame breath damage does 3.25% of target's max health, up from 2.5. Does AP Shyvana, I've seen quite, that's actually all I've seen lately, the fire breathing dragon fantasy. This isn't scaling with AP or anything, that's just like flat, so you can build like whatever you would be normally building, tank or AD on Shyvana as well, and you'll still get that increase there, so just all around buffs. Tom Kench, allies in combat with champions can no longer jump into Abyssal Voyage. That's his ult, so I think that's cool. I think that's probably more from people trying to fight but accidentally going into it, because it's kind of like sucks your cursor in, but I can also see that being a nerf to being able to escape quickly. I'm sure he can still do it, but just can't bring people with him. Urgot, base armor nerf. Once again, base armor hurts. The cooldown, or his mana cost on his Q is up 10, so he won't be able to spam it as much, but you shouldn't really be running into mana problems with Urgot early anyway, unless you're spamming it needlessly. And his W cooldown for his shield thing is actually up 4 seconds at any level. Or sorry, not at any level, at level 1, and then it goes down as you level it. Going from 13 to 17 seconds is actually quite a huge nerf. It'll give you a lot more windows to actually go in on him and actually be able to do damage that sticks. So, and then the damage that you do will be more because he has less base armor. So I think that's good. The delay between excessive forces, empowered attack, and Vi's next basic attack is shorter and scales better with attack speed. She did feel clunky. I remember that on her, so that's just kind of nice. Volibear, bonus damage versus dashing and airborne targets is no longer flat. It's just 8% of the target's max health. I didn't even realize he did bonus damage to dashing and airborne targets with his E. Like, who even knows what Volibear does? There's like 2 people in the world who play him, and they don't even enjoy it, so I don't know why this champion hasn't been reworked. And apparently, if you ever feel like going AP Volibear, his AP ratios are higher, so thank Riot next time you have an AP Volibear inting in your jungle. And the lightning bolt on cast fires after 1 second rather than 2.5, so just a little bit more responsive. This is one of the bigger champion changes in the patch for me. I actually laned against the York today. He did a ton of damage and felt unkillable, and that wasn't even like the big change that they made to him. I don't know why he was like so invincible, but he felt like it. Mistwalker and Maidens no longer deal decreased damage when far away from Yorick, so if they're pushing a lane, they'll still be doing a little bit more meaningful damage, so that's helpful. Though the like AFK split push AI will be able to split push harder. Nearby deaths, enemy deaths per grave is was 12.84. Now it's 12.62. So later on in the game, you'll be getting a lot more. You feel kind of useless on York if you're not able to have ghouls, and to get ghouls, you have to last hit with your Q a ton, or wait every 4 minions later on in the game, which is going to be like every wave you'll end up getting like 1. But now every wave, if there's 6 minions in the wave, you'll get 3, which is enough to summon a ghoul, your ghouls, because you need to summon with 3. So that's actually a huge quality of life change right there. The Mistwalkers and the Maiden no longer sometimes fail to target an enemy hit by the Morning Mist. I've had that happen in the few games that I've played with the New York, and it feels real bad because you hit it, you have like you're doing everything right, but then the game just breaks. So that's a nice fix here. This is the big change for me here. The Maiden's health is now lower flat, but it scales off of 70% of Yorick's health rather than 30. So once you kind of get really tanky on Yorick, depending on what you build, most Yoriks will build Trinity Force and Sterix. So you'll be getting a lot of health there, and then you probably build some tank items, which will also have health on them as well. You'll be getting pretty tanky, and then that'll make the Maiden. It has 1,000 less health at level 3, but since it's scaling off more of your health, 40% of your health, if you have even like 2,500 health, then it'll be the same as it was before, and anything past that, your Maiden's gonna have more health, so that's cool. This is the big change, though. That's a nice little change there. The Maiden no longer begins autonomously pushing a lane when far from Yorick. Instead, she'll leash back to him. Once you used your Maiden and you didn't get a kill, it felt bad because your Maiden would just walk away and kill itself, and then you couldn't summon it again until the cooldown was down, and the cooldown wouldn't start counting down until the Maiden died. And then you just feel really, really weak. It was kind of like it felt really bad. It's like, okay, your Maiden's pushing a wave. That's helpful for you, right? Well, probably not, because my giant cooldown that lets me be able to 1v1 pretty much anyone isn't even starting the cooldown until it dies, and that just kind of felt dumb. Yorick can now reactivate Eulogy of the Isles to set the Maiden free, but can't get her back once he does, so she'll push to the nearest lane until she dies. So you can still choose to do that, which was one of the strengths of that. I think taking away it entirely would kind of feel bad as well, but you don't have to do that. And then if you don't do that, you can just walk around with it and it actually helps you in fights. I think that's really cool, because the big thing with the Maiden is when minions die around it, it just summons ghouls from it. So you're just getting tons and tons of ghouls by having huge minion waves die on the enemy team. So I think overall that just makes the character feel a lot more fluent to play. And I might actually play some Yorick. Not really right now. I'm tryharding because of the rank placements and whatnot. But a little bit into the season, I think I'll give Yorick another look and maybe play him a bit more. Now that there actually feels less frustrating and punishing to play him. Zyra's mana regen is down, so she's not going to be as much of a pain spamming everything bot lane. Allura's cast no longer fizzles if Evelyn is inside of her target mid-cast. No longer occasionally drops Evelyn directly on top of her target, and can now be buffered. I don't know. Evelyn's annoying. I don't like playing against Evelyn. I played against an Evelyn who didn't have any magic pen, didn't have her void staff yet. I know her ult is an execute, and my health was kind of low, but on Olaf I had a spirit visage and my ult magic resist. Her ult still hit me for 900, not at max build. I don't even think she was max build yet, but once she got that void staff, the next time she ulted me, did 1900 damage for a giant AoE execute that makes you untargetable and teleports you to safety. Yeah, fuck that. Kled, I always thought this was weird. Jousting through minions no longer is likely to stack them directly on top of each other. I always thought that was weird, that you would stack the minions directly on top of each other, but then it made it really easy to hit them with your max damage on your Tiamat. But it no longer does that. So that's gone. Given you're typically trying to hit something on screen or just off screen, these abilities were disabled minimap targeting to avoid miscast. Hey, they changed Lux's R. I played a support Lux game in the preseason, and I ulted backwards in a team fight that might have won us the game because I was aiming for something, but my mouse went over, like, it like warped over to my minimap. Shit like that's really frustrating. Like, or when you're another one with the minimap thing where it's like I would rather it target the minimap. You're trying to teleport to the like a tower on the minimap, but the way your camera is set, there's a tower or a minion directly underneath your minimap. It will teleport to the minion or the tower directly beside you underneath your minimap rather than teleporting to what you actually clicked on the minimap because it prioritizes the things under the minimap rather than the minimap for the teleport, which is super annoying. And it's even more annoying now because you can't cancel the teleport and at least get some of that blunder back. You just full on shamefully channel the whole thing and then you have to wait 6 minutes again. So I wish they would do something about that. The Oblivion Orb now costs more gold and has less ability power. So I don't know. It might be more of a later pickup and more focused on like stacking AP and then to amplify your AP later because even with that extra, that's a huge cost to pay for only 20 AP. You're not amplifying much with that magic pen. The Morello cost to combined is now 100 lower, but it's still the same total cost because the orb went up 100, and the ability power is also down to 70 rather than 80. So it's rather than just buying it to buy it and getting that heal at the same time, but just buying it for the magic pen. Now it's kind of like, okay, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I'd rather just stack a ton of AP. This is actually a pretty big change. I stopped building Sunfire for a long time, but I've been building it a lot more on when I play tanks top lane like Malphite and Scion. So having it down 150 gold is really nice. It helps you push, but later on in the game when you're just really, really, really tanky and you're just in the fight and the fights are really long and drawn out because they're trying to kill you, just having that Sunfire constantly ticking down on their team and doing the AoE damage, it's not killing anyone like in a second, but it is wearing them down to maybe where your team can go in and pick people off and whatnot. And you're just trying to survive. You're not. Tanks have nice base damage early, which can do stuff for them, but later on you're just building all tankiness, just doing a little bit of extra damage. It's basically kind of like in like a WoW raid where your healer's doing extra DPS. Yeah, they're not going to top the meter, but it's helping the overall cause slightly by having that little bit of extra damage in when they can thread it in. That's kind of how I feel about the Sunfire Cape. This is a cool change to Overheal. The allied heal conversion is no longer 300% of your allies healing. It's now the same for your ally and your self-healing, but now scales up to 100%. So that shield can heal for 100% of your excess self-healing. So basically you're just life-stealing past 100% health. After 6 seconds, decays by 2.5 the max shield value each second rather than falling off immediately. I think that's a nice change as well. So I think that's kind of cool. And the tooltip now properly tracks total damage blocked. That's kind of cool. And this is another cool one. I always take Bloodline on Olaf because you don't really need that extra attack speed. You're gaining a ton of attack speed just from your passive and your W anyway, so it kind of felt wasted. So I was taking this, but you were only getting 8% lifesteal at the last part of the game. But now you're ending up getting 12% lifesteal. So you're getting 50% more lifesteal, but it stacks up slower. But if you have like a really strong early game or if the game goes long enough, you get those stacks pretty fast. I think the trade-off for having to stack it twice as long, but getting that extra 4% lifesteal is really big. 8% lifesteal is it's decent, but having 12% lifesteal just as a stat is gonna feel really, really nice for characters like AD carries that like can't itemize the lifesteal with when they're like trying to like itemize crit and stuff properly. So they'll still get that lifesteal out of here, and having it be 50% higher will actually feel a lot more impactful, especially on champions that have that really low base health pool. The cut down bonus damage. 4 to 12% versus targets with more max HP to you is now 4 to 10% versus targets with 10 to 100% more max HP than you. So rather than just having flat more HP, it's just more HP as a percentage-wise. So 80 carries are always going to have really low HP, so that'll probably feel good on them. Absolute focus, adaptive stats is down. You get 6 less AD or 10 less ability power at level 18. I usually try to go for the cooldown reduction anyway. because even if you end up getting more cooldown reduction than you need, it's whatever because you still get credited for it with extra adaptive damage. But a little bit of a change there. All of these little tweaks in damage and armor and things kind of make the game feel a little clunky to play right now because you're not expecting to do, or you're expecting to do more damage or take like less damage. It's kind of weird. Just you get used to something the way it is, and then those slight changes throw it off a little bit. This is actually damage and cooldown decreased. So Ignite's, like everyone was saying, this is a huge nerf. I think this is a buff for Ignite. It's up 30 seconds faster, so now rather than being up every 3.5 minutes, it's up every 3 minutes. And it does 10 less damage at level 1, and at level 18, that's quite a bit less damage, 95 less true damage. But a large part of the Ignite, at least from my perspective, because when you lane against a top laner with Ignite, they're taking that Ignite to try and push their lead early. Now they have more all-in opportunities and more all-in windows because the Ignite cooldown is lower. So I think I think it's a pretty substantial buff for taking it on a champion that's just taking it to go into lane and win all-ins, because your all-in window is 30 seconds faster. And you have more all-in windows in the same period of time if you're all-inning every time your Ignite's up. Which also means that if you don't have the Ignite, you have less windows of safety where you're not going to get all in by their Ignite because it's down. So, and then the other thing is, like, yeah, it does less damage, but a lot of the times, just you're not killing them by the exact amount unless you're igniting them and praying that it kills them under the tower. If you're igniting them while you're fighting them, a lot of the times the Ignite is a little bit overkill and you only need half of the Ignite damage, or you just need it to block their healing, and that's helpful, or like the vision that it gives you. So I think overall that's going to actually help people who take Ignite to propel a lead early. It's a buff for them. And then here's some like other things. Baron is basically weaker early. It takes longer to scale, and doesn't. Let's see here. See it. 24 to 48. Now it's 12 to 48. And then it tells you, basically gives you like a trade-off to like what, like you can come and look at all these numbers. I'm not going to go through all of them. Basically, they're trying to slow down the pace of the game with that, as well as inhibitors and nexus resistance. Rather than scaling from 55 to 70, they just have 70 at all times. It's trying to slow down like those, oh, we want to fight it like 20 minutes, we got Baron, and now we're so strong with these extra stats, and all the turrets that we're pushing and the inhibs that we're pushing are really weak and they don't scale until later. I generally think that's a good idea. It is frustrating when like you get a really big lead, you get the Baron and whatnot, and then the game drags on, because the longer the game drags on, the more impactful a mistake is and the more opportunities it gives your team to make mistakes. But at the same time, it does give you, from the other perspective and the other side of things, more opportunities to catch up and to not feel despair that the game is over as soon as something bad happens right then. So I think that's good. And the jungle camp experience, that you can go and look at the numbers here. Being able to memorize all of this is, yeah, I'm not going to. You get less experience for jungle camps, and the amount of experience that you get up on them. Experience scales every second level rather than every level. So basically, junglers get less experience from the jungle, which is nice. It's a jungle nerf, but it also might be a double-edged sword, because now you might be getting ganked more because the jungle isn't giving as much experience as it was before. So we'll see. Challenging Smite no longer reveals. It still does the damage reduction, but it no longer reveals, and the damage versus champions is down. Same duration, but it's down 12 early, and it's down quite a bit later on. It's down 37. So I think the Challenging Smite is strong enough just on the fact that it makes you not be able to do any damage to the person. The fact that it also is doing true damage dot, kind of ridiculous to me, but I mean, I guess that is what it is. And there's some new skins and stuff, and yeah, that's the end of that. A little bit longer than I was expecting to go for there, but there was, I guess, quite a few pretty impactful changes and things that I did have opinions on. Anyway, guys, hopefully that did help. Thank you for watching, those who did, and I'll be keeping up with these at least. I know, like I said, I'm not very active on YouTube. I said that in one of my videos before, but I was going to try and at least do the patch reviews and the patch opinions for people that want to see it, just so that it's all in one place, so that people don't have to go back and scroll through the streams to see when I was talking about the patch. But I am going to try and put some games every now and then. Basically, they're just going to be as minimal effort as possible. I'm just going to clip them from highlights on stream and just upload them directly to YouTube, so it won't be like any video editing or anything like that needed. It'll just go straight from the Twitch rebroadcast onto YouTube, and they're not going to be monetized or anything. It's literally because I'm listening to music that's copyrighted. So it's more about just having videos up there for people that want to watch them, and I'll see how those are received after I start doing them for a while, and see if there's a point to keep doing that. Maybe stream without music in the future if it's getting enough views and whatnot. But we'll see. Basically, just wanted to keep you guys in the loop that might be getting back to having just games that are worth, because I know some people do go back and watch the rebroadcasts. It'll basically just be like a highlight of the rebroadcasts. It's kind of like I used to do before, where I would just have a full game from start to finish that I did on stream onto the YouTube channel. So hopefully looking to do that as early as like next week. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Take it easy, and we'll see you next time.